Rock Metal Nation, what is up? Real quick before we get started, I just wanted to let you know that Rock Metal Studios, the very same studio that brings you the Rock Metal podcast, is looking to help bands who are able to record their tracks either at home or in a professional recording studio, but need some help mixing. Go ahead and send me an email at therockmetalpodcast@gmail.com. That's therockmetalpodcast@gmail.com. We can go ahead and discuss mixing your tracks for free. The Rock Metal Podcast, episode 126 with We Three Kings. Rock Metal Nation, what is up? This is John from the Rock Metal Podcast. Example you just heard was Sound of the Radio by We Three Kings, who I've got on the show with me right now. They've got a new 5-track EP out called Fire. They released in February, and right now I'm being joined by members of the band, Pete and Rich, to share some stories about the music and share more info about the band. So, Pete and Rich, welcome to the show.
Hi, John. Thank you.
Hi. How are you doing?
Doing absolutely well, thank you. How are you boys?
Yeah, great, thanks.
Good.
Lovely. Let's go listen back to that track, Sound of the Radio. Coming back from Sound of the Radio. Now, pretty much the entire EP is just an ass kicker the whole way through. I don't know if you guys are going.
That's right.
But I just love the way the track just kicks in with the drums and the bass. Immediately, you've got my attention. White girls are dancing everywhere.
Yeah.
And you've even got the hissing guitars. I don't know if that's the best way to put it. I was trying to think of how to put that. The
Bit of feedback.
Yeah, feedbacking guitars.
Yeah.
Before obviously it kicks into the actual guitar riff, but no, like great track. Vocals come in, the whole thing just comes together really well.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm curious, what's the inspiration or story behind Sound of the Radio?
So really, it's about the state of the radio at the moment, which is generally you switch it on. There's not a lot that's really that great coming out of the radio, but very occasionally you might hear a track that really stands out and jumps out at you, and you're like, "Whoa, what's that song? What's the sound on the radio?" And it basically came from that, and just the idea of something that really grabs your attention and blows all the other stuff out of the water that you're hearing on the radio at that time, which in our experience is getting rarer and rarer these days because often it's pop and stuff that we're not really that into. So hopefully a track like Sound of the Radio is something that you might want to hear on the radio, and if you did, it might get your attention and your ears might prick up and think, wow, what's that?
Very cool idea. Now, I guess that brings me to a next kind of somewhat logical question is, was there any nostalgia at all in thinking about how the radio used to be when we were just a couple of lads growing up?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, that's what we grew up listening to, radio, and obviously there's some programs on the TV that we used to watch, Top of the Pops back in the UK, which was quite big. But that's where you used to get your inspiration from. That's where you used to pick up your music and your kind of new bands from. We had the John Peel sessions, which was on Radio 1 back in the UK, which was massive. He used to play a lot of the, unsigned, original, up-and-coming bands, and that's where a lot of new artists and a lot of, obviously, teenagers used to get the new music from. So I mean, there's not really too much of that now because it's all pretty much, pre-made kind of pop music. So, yeah, exactly. That's kind of comes from our era, really. We were at the tail end of that era. So
wow. Now I'm curious, when writing the 5-track EP, where in the writing process did Sound of the Radio pop in? Was it one of the first tracks?
No, it was one of the last ones that we did actually. So we had, so like you said, there's 5 tracks. We had Uncontrollable Squeal, we had the Barrel, we had Bright Lights of the City. They'd been written for a while, and then Sound of the Radio and Invisible Man came really late on. And we actually had the time booked in the studio, and we were working hard to get those final 2 tracks ready before we went into the studio. And that came really quite late, which in a strange way is quite funny because it's ended up being sort of the lead single from the EP and the one that everybody seems to really have been responsive to. But it came almost kind of last minute, really. And maybe that's a good way of working. And you put yourself under a bit of pressure, and then your best work kind of miraculously comes out, I suppose.
Yeah. And you mentioned that everybody just kind of reacting to the track. Did that surprise you guys at all?
No, I think we knew when we wrote the song, we kind of got the idea that it was pretty much a solid track. But yeah, I mean, it's one of them. It's always good that you get some really positive feedback, and we have got quite a lot of responses from there. We've actually, we're getting quite a lot of emails and messages coming back on a lot of the social media about it. But yeah, I mean, I think originally we thought Bright Lights of the City would be the lead track because it, such a catchy song. And then this one kind of came along. It was like, yeah, especially when we came out of the studio and we realised how good and how powerful it was. We were like, right, that kind of took over as a lead track. We probably would follow that up maybe with Bright Lights. We're not sure, but yeah, just a really solid track. Really, really pleased with it.
Absolutely. All right, let's go listen back to the next track, The Barrel. Rock Metal Nation, it's John from the Rock Metal Podcast for a real quick break to let you know that Jay over at Metal Mayhem Radio is looking to help you get your band in rotation on his station. So go ahead and hit up Jay at studio@metalmayhemradio.co.uk. That is studio@metalmayhemradio.co.uk. Just go ahead and say that the Rock Metal Podcast sent you. He'll get you into rotation on Metal Mayhem Radio. All right, so come back from the barrel. What is the story or inspiration behind the track? Similar question for you.
Sure. So the Barrel, it's really about getting screwed over by the man. So whether that's in your job or just in general society, you know, people getting sick and tired of being told what to do all the time, getting put in a situation that they're, you know, peed off about or just not very happy with. And it's just a kind of a bit of a fight back and saying, you know, as they say on School of Rock, stick it to the man.
I was wondering what that song's about because as I'm listening to it, I'm like, this isn't like On the Ship with the Barrel, is it? And then I was thinking about bending me over the barrel, and I'm like, okay, I'm really glad I get to chat with these guys and figure out.
Yeah. So being bent over the barrel, being backed into a corner, hung out to dry, you know, all these things where you feel like you're being done a disservice to, or you're being stuck in a situation that you're not happy with.
Yeah. Now, obviously, it's another banging, crushing track. We've got the drums and the bass going. Now, I'm curious, when you guys were writing the tracks, is that just kind of how it all came out to be, or was that something that was a conscious decision?
You know, the Barrel was pretty much bang on from the start, wasn't it? We Rich came up with some of the kind of riff and the idea of the song itself, and that one really kind of fell into place pretty quickly, and it is a fun song. I mean, obviously it's quite funny to listen to as well with the kind of idea of it. And we always have fun with a lot of the music that we do. But yeah, I mean, that one, I mean, most of our songs, we always have a couple of songs that it takes a bit of a while to kind of get right. We'll have a couple of ideas of riffs and a couple of ideas of different kind of, choruses, etc. But most of them, we just kind of know it just kind of fits in pretty quickly. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned you've got a lot of writing going on. I'm curious, in order to produce this 5-track EP, how many songs did you guys have to write?
Well, we've done 2 5-track EPs, and in total we've got 10 songs to our name. So everything that's available is all the songs we've got at the moment. So we're not one of these bands that will write 20 songs and then pick the best 5. We just kind of get stuck straight into it and go, okay, that either sounds like a good song or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, we'll kind of bin it off and go again with something else. We don't kind of keep a big backlog of songs and a big file of songs. We have a lot of ideas that we throw around, and you know, some of them stick and some of them don't. And sometimes we might write a song and it will morph into something else as we work through the process. But you know, if you said to us, how many other songs have you got in your locker? The answer is 0. You've got them all.
Yeah, well, we've got one that we might be working on at the minute, which is kind of part done, like a bit of a riff and an idea. But as Rich was just saying, we tend to be quite, we kind of get an idea, we know straight away we like it, and so that's it. We just kind of go for it, and we'll get it written, and that's it, straight on to the next one. So quite efficient, really.
Yeah. Now, why don't you guys go ahead and tell us about the other 3 tracks that make up the 5-track EP Fire that came out in February?
Sure. So we've got a track on there called Uncontrollable Squeal. And what that came about from was we borrowed a guitar amp from one of our friends and we plugged it in, and it was just making this uncontrollable squealing noise because there was something wrong with it. So it was an inspiration for a song. So we wrote a song called Uncontrollable Squeal. But then that kind of the story of that song changed into being about a girl that you can't get away from, and she's in your head, and just looking at her face makes you want to cry with an uncontrollable squeal. So that's kind of it's maybe, I don't know, maybe it's an ex-girlfriend or something. We're not quite sure, but so that's how that song came about.
Bright Lights of the City is quite a kind of bunch of lads going out. Into the city Friday night, Saturday night, doing whatever you kind of want to do. Really going out for a party, and you might bump into a girl, might find somebody quite attractive, and you have a pretty good night. And it literally is kind of that group going out having a good laugh and having a night out on the town, really, in the streets. So that's kind of where the idea of that came from. So I mean, I think most people, certainly younger people who are going out, can kind of relate to that one.
And then the final one will be Invisible Man, and that's maybe a bit darker, a bit more sinister. It's kind of about a guy creeping around. You can't see him because he's invisible. I don't know. It's kind of half comic book kind of theme, but half a bit darker and a bit kind of what's this guy going to get up to? Nobody can hear him or see him, and he's there, but you don't know he's there. So it's, I don't know, a bit weird, but a bit kind of comic book in the same way.
All right, bend him over the barrel.
That's it, exactly.
And then put that sound on the radio when it's an uncontrollable squeal.
That's right.
Yeah.
All morphs into one.
All right. What exciting news you guys have coming up for Rock Metal Nation to pay attention to outside of the 5-track EP?
So the EP's just come out. That came out in February, and we've done a couple of gigs to support that over here in the UK. So we did a gig down in London. We did a gig here in Manchester. We've got some more dates booked in over the next couple of months. And then, I don't know, we're going to see where the rest of the year takes us. I mean, 2017 ended up being a really busy year for us. We were gigging quite a lot. People were getting more and more interested in the music as we went along, and this new EP seems to have had a really great response so far. So we're going to see what offers we get, what kind of interest we get, and just take it from there, really.
Cool stuff. Now, for Rock Metal Nation who's frothing at the ears, they listen to the sound of the radio, they listen to the barrel, they are more than excited and ready to go for all of the tracks that are coming up on the EP Fire. How can they find out more about you? Is there a website that they should go to?
Yeah, I mean, we're on most of the social media sites, so you can catch us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We've got the EP available on SoundCloud as well, and Bandcamp as well. Spotify, Apple Music, all of the digital download sites, so you can stream that straight from your phone. You can stream it from all the digital download sites effectively. So, there's no excuse. Listen, download it, stream it, tell your friends, enjoy.
There's no excuse. I love that.
Totally.
Well, guys, unless there's anything else you wanted to throw out there, I just wanted to thank you for taking time out of your day to come onto the Rock Metal Podcast and sharing We Three Kings with Rock Metal Nation.
Thanks, John. Take care.
Cheers.
All right, Rock Metal Nation. Hopefully you just found your new favorite band in We Three Kings. Big thanks again to them for coming on and sharing their music with us. Make sure to head over to www.therockmetalpodcast.ca to get all the information on the show you just heard today. And until then, rock on, Rock Metal Nation.